Hey everyone, this is Dylan, and today I'm going to be doing another one of my movie reviews and recommendations, which also includes like TV shows and stuff that I've watched, pretty much just anything that I've watched, but I thought that sounded like a good title. So, the first thing I wanted to talk about was a show that I watched on Netflix, and it is called Riverdale, and I watched season 2 just came out on Netflix. And it's a show based off of the Archie comics universe. So it follows Archie, Betty, Veronica, and Jughead. And it's very much darker than the actual Archie comic books, which I never read, but I had always seen them at like Walmart or whatever. They would have them on like the little ends of aisles and stuff. So both seasons of Riverdale are on Netflix. So the first season revolves around the murder of a local teenager who is found in the river, shot in the head, and is basically tries to figure out who shot and killed this teenager. So Archie, Betty, Veronica, and Jughead are all kind of like amateur detectives, but it is a really good show. If you are a fan of horror movies or things like that, you can definitely see a lot of homages to the horror genre and the mystery genre and the thrillers and all of that. So I would definitely recommend checking it out if you are looking for something to watch and you can handle like a teen drama. So the one I particularly watched was the second season. I haven't seen the first season in a while, and that revolves around one of the characters from the first season gets shot in the second season, and it's basically trying to find the serial killer who is on the loose in Riverdale. And there's a lot of like secondary storylines and all of that, but the main storyline is trying to find this guy who is killing people. So I would definitely recommend checking it out if you have not seen it. So the first one of the actual physical copies that I have to show you guys or talk about with you guys is also related to the Archie comics, and this is the VHS copy of Archie's Weird Mysteries, Archie and the Riverdale Vampires. So this is a VHS. I got it, I don't know, probably last year at some point. But it is from Universal Studios, and there are 4 episodes on this of Archie's Weird Mysteries, which I believe altogether there were 40, and Mill Creek actually, I believe, put out a complete collection of all of the Archie mysteries, which I'm going to try to find at some point. But anyway, there's one episode that I don't know necessarily why they included it, since it's called Archie and the Riverdale Vampires, but it's about Couch Potato. I think it's something about Spuds, or I forget what the name of the actual episode is, but basically what happens is Jughead is watching like a horror movie marathon on TV, and he basically gets told to a reporter or somebody comes on and says that if somebody can call and give all the movies that were played in the marathon, that they would win a prize. So he does, wins the prize, and it's a potato, which is kind of dumb. So he takes it home, and basically the potato comes to life and has these like tentacle-like things that come out, and basically it transforms the potato into Jughead while Jughead is kind of in a catatonic state. And then the potato Jughead starts trying to increase the amount of people who also are in the same kind of catatonic state, so then these potatoes can take over Riverdale. I don't know, it's kind of weird. And then there are 3 episodes that are all kind of connected, and they're all about vampires. So I thought the show was kind of interesting to actually see how the Riverdale universe is connected to Archie comics. So a lot of the characters that you see in this are also in the Riverdale show. So I thought that was pretty cool. Alright, so next up I watched La La Land. So this is probably going to be interesting if you are a fan of this movie, because I did not like it. I was not a huge fan of this movie. I had not seen it, and I think a lot of the reason that I wasn't a big fan of it was because I didn't think it lived up to the hype at all. Like, I had only heard good things about this. Everyone loved this movie, and I watched it. I thought it was so slow, and there wasn't a whole lot of, like, I felt like it was just boring. And it is a musical. It follows Emma Stone, who plays Mia, and Ryan Gosling, who plays Sebastian. And Mia is an aspiring actress, and Ryan Gosling is a jazz musician who has dreams of opening up his own jazz lounge kind of thing. So they meet at a party, and they kind of start to like each other, and then they start dating. And Mia is kind of like, she goes to a bunch of auditions and doesn't actually get any of the roles, and Ryan Gosling's character is really the one who pushes her to stay and like keep going on with this acting career. So let's talk about the songs. I did not like any of the songs. Like, one of the key, I like musicals. One of the key things about a musical that I think is really important is, after you're done watching it, even if you've watched it for the first time, there should be songs that you know, like you can, they make an impact on you, like they get stuck in your head or whatever. I thought the songs were just really bad. And not only that, but I thought that the singing of the songs, like the vocals, were not the best. Like, I couldn't tell you a single song that was sung in this movie. Like, it didn't make an impact on me at all. So that was highly disappointing. Now, I thought that the acting was decent. Like, when they weren't singing songs, I thought that the acting was decent. And I thought that most of the songs, going back to the songs, I thought that a lot of the songs, you couldn't really understand exactly what they were saying. Like, I couldn't understand the words to a lot of the songs, so I don't know. I was just not a fan, and I was kind of disappointed. Alright, so the next movie that I want to talk about is The Gift. So this is a Blumhouse release, Blumhouse and Universal. So Jason Bateman, Joel Edgerton, and Rebecca Hall are in this. And Jason Bateman's character and Rebecca Hall are married, and they had just moved back to LA from Chicago. So they're buying things for their new house when they meet Joel Edgerton. And Joel comes up to Jason Bateman's character and is like, "Hey, do you remember me? We went to high school together." Joel Edgerton's character just kind of starts showing up. For some reason, he actually finds where they lived and starts sending gifts and all kinds of weird things like that. And it's very much a thriller. You don't really know what's going on. And about halfway through this movie, you start to have, like, the feelings that you have for certain characters change drastically. And they kind of paint the characters in a new light. And it has a crazy and quite unpredictable twist. And the ending is pretty ambiguous. Like, you aren't 100% sure what actually is going on, and I thought that that was pretty interesting. And I actually did watch the alternate ending on this, and the alternate ending gives a little bit more exposition into what is going on, but they decided not to include it because they thought that they wanted to leave the ending ambiguous, and they thought that the exposition was a little too much. It kind of gave it away, but I thought that I would definitely recommend checking out the alternate ending because it does give a little more insight into one of the characters and why they do what they do. So the next couple they all have the same title, but this one is different from the other ones. So this one is Pulse. So this came out in 1988, and it stars Cliff DeYoung, Roxanne Hart, and Joey Lawrence. And this basically takes place in, I would say, like a suburbia type of thing, and Joey Lawrence plays, he's probably like 10 or 12, and he plays a little boy whose parents are divorced, and his mom lives in Colorado and his dad lives in Los Angeles. So he's like I think he's spending the summer in Los Angeles with his dad. And right before he gets there, like a week before he goes to visit his dad, the neighbor ends up dying in a very, very mysterious circumstance. And it's very unclear why. Once Joey Lawrence's character gets to his dad's house, strange things, he makes friends, and makes one friend, and he tells them about what happened at the neighbor's house. So it turns out that there are a lot of weird things going on with the electricity. So the electricity plays a big part in this movie, and I would say that electricity is kind of like the villain of this movie. Because it is, I don't think that, it's like a horror thriller, and I thought it was alright. I would definitely recommend checking it out. This was released, I think it's like $5 on Amazon. This was released by Mill Creek, so unfortunately there aren't any bonus features on this, so that's kind of sucks, but I kind of wished that I could like listen to a commentary or something about how this was made, because I thought it was interesting. And I kind of liked the electricity. It was kind of weird the way that they had like CGI'd the electricity, which I don't even know if it was CGI. It kind of looked like it was, they had filmed a bunch of stuff and then they had somehow inlaid the electricity sparks or whatever, they over top of the film. So I thought that was a little interesting. But then we have the other movie called Pulse, and this is by Dimensions Extreme, and this is Pulse. This is a movie that stars Kristen Bell, Ian Somerhalder. This is actually interesting because I didn't even realize it, but apparently Wes Craven wrote the screenplay for this, so that's interesting. But basically this follows Kristen Bell's character, who learns that her friend is kind of went missing, and she goes to his apartment to figure out what's going on. He's kind of like this techie guy, and when she gets there, she realizes that he's acting really strange. During the course of while she's there, he ends up hanging himself, kind of in front of her. So what happens is, what they later find out, there is this thing that affects technology, and more specifically computers and cell phones, so like wireless technology. And it turns out that there's like these entities which are like a mix between like a ghost and like a demon thing. And what happens is they are transmitted through wireless devices, and they kind of do this like Dementor like thing, Dementor from Harry Potter, but they kind of like suck, instead of sucking happiness like a Dementor does, they suck your will to live. So what happens is, once they do that, then you will either end up killing yourself, or you will kind of become like this catatonic state, and you get these bruises, and the bruises start to cover your entire body, and you basically turn into ash. And this movie it had a very gritty feel to it. It was definitely low budget, and you could tell that. So, I mean, I would recommend checking this one out just if you're into that kind of thing. And, I mean, I didn't even realize that Wes Craven was the one who did the screenplay, but that makes it quite a bit better. Like, it says it's literally nowhere on this case except in the little credit thing on the back. So that's actually pretty interesting to know. And then it spawned a sequel. And so we have Pulse 2, and I think this is subtitled Pulse, I think it's Pulse 2 Afterlife. So this takes place, I don't know if this takes place necessarily concurrently with the first one or if it's a little bit after the first one. But it follows a father and his young daughter who he's trying to get her to a refugee camp. They're dying or turning into ash. So this is a lot more low budget than the first one. I would say, I don't know, one of the things that kind of irks me is when things are low budget, they just put green screen. There's a lot of scenes that look green screen in this, and I think that most of them were. And then we have the third Pulse movie, and this is the last one that they released in this Pulse series, at least right now. And this takes place 7 years after the events of the second movie, and it's the first movie to bring back a character. And so it brings back the little girl from the second movie, and she is now 17, and all like wireless devices and even electricity, which I'm not quite sure about that, why that is kind of gone, but all wireless devices are kind of like destroyed or whatever. So she is in this refugee camp and she's unhappy, she doesn't like it. She goes to, like, there's like a junkyard type thing, and she goes into one of the cars to kind of just release some stress or whatever, and she finds these earrings. One of them falls underneath the seat, and she reaches down to get it, and she finds a laptop. And she then finds like a generator. They have a generator at one of the tents at the refugee camp, and she charges the laptop and turns it on, and somebody starts like instant messaging her. And this guy is, his name is, well, this guy is played by Ryder Strong, so that's pretty cool. He is from Cabin Fever and Boy Meets World. So he starts instant messaging her and tells her to go to the big city, which I think this takes place in Texas, so they're going to Houston, or she's going to Houston. And this is a very low budget movie. Like, extremely. I think almost every single one of the scenes was CGI. Like, they were even in a house, and one of the rooms, they had CGI, well, they had green screened it, and it was just a little unbearable. I actually liked this movie better than the first one. I thought that all of the scenes with Ryder Strong in it were really good, and I actually really enjoyed them. This is the first movie to have this thing of once you die, you can come back as one of these virus-like things. So there's a lot of characters that you've already seen that come back. And there's also kind of an homage to a movie called Black Snake Moan in this, and I thought that was kind of interesting as well. And it's a lot more personalized because there are people that, like actual people that come back. So, I mean, if it were up to me, I would probably skip the second two of the Pulse series, but I am a strong believer that you should watch for yourselves. But I don't know, I wasn't a huge fan of the sequels. The last thing I want to talk to you guys about today is the Penny Dreadful, which was part of one of the 8 films to die for that was part of the After Dark Horror Fest series. Now, I was a big fan of the series, and I have almost all of the releases from this series. It started in 2006, and so they had one for 2006, 2007, 2008, and I think 2009 as well. And there's 8 films in each of those, for each of those years, and then they also came back in 2016 and did it. So there's quite a few movies in this, and they're billed as these movies that are like too brutal, too disturbing, and too gory or whatever for general audiences to see them in like a theater or whatever. So that was an interesting way to bill a movie that was like straight to DVD or whatever. But this is Penny Dreadful, and it follows a girl named Penny and her therapist, and they're going on some sort of trip. And the thing about Penny is she is terrified of cars. She had a traumatic experience when she was younger, and both of her parents died in an accident, and she basically watched them die because she was also in the accident. So she's terrified, and her therapist is kind of doing like an exposure therapy or whatever so she's taking her on this road trip type of thing. So they go up into these mountains, and so the therapist is driving and Penny's in the passenger seat, and what happens is somebody runs out in front of the car and gets hit, and the therapist gets out and starts to see if the guy is okay, and turns out that the guy just got grazed or whatever, and she offers him a ride to where he's going. So he's kind of like a hitchhiker, and he just sits in the back seat and has a hood on so you can't really see him, and he doesn't speak. So they get to where he's going, and he basically puts a stake in the tire, but they don't realize it until later because they're like, that guy was such a creep, let's get out of here. And they had just went up into the woods or whatever. The tire loses air and they can't go anywhere. So they're stuck in the car, and some other things happen, and because I don't want to spoil too much of it, but I would definitely recommend this. I actually really enjoyed it, and it's an interesting take on the urban legend where some like deranged person sabotages a car, and I liked it, so I would definitely recommend checking it out. But that is it for the movie and TV show review and recommendations. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Let me know what you think about what I think about these movies, and if there's anything you agree with, anything you disagree with, or anything that you think I should review in the future. But thank you guys for watching. Have a great day.